So I'm Christina Marentes, the Director of Admissions for the UCLA Executive MBA and the UCLA-NUS Executive MBA programs. Thank you so much for joining us today for our joint UCLA-NUS Executive MBA program information session. It's about 6 p.m. Pacific time here in Los Angeles, so good evening to those that are local to me. Good morning or good afternoon to others. I see in our registrant list for today that we are reaching across the globe. I see candidates located in Singapore, India, China, Canada, Peru, the Philippines, and more. It's just like remarkable to see that, and it shows a true representation of the unique nature of the UCLA-NUS diversity and the class profile each year. Our program brings business professionals together from across the globe and fosters relationships that impact organizations and people globally. Today, I'm joined by Desiree Lai, my counterpart at the National University of Singapore. Hello, Desiree.
Hello, everyone. Hi, nice to see you guys this morning if you are in Singapore or near the region. And yes, good afternoon and good evening to everyone else across the globe. Once again, I'm Desiree Lai, the Marketing and Admissions Manager from National University of Singapore.
Thank you, Desiree. So today, Desiree and I will be sharing information about the UCLA-NUS Executive MBA program. Then we'll follow that by an alumni panel. A few of our alumni kind of gave away some secrets already, but we'll say some more later. And then we'll open it up for Q&A so you can ask all of your questions. So next slide, please. Now I'd like to share our program highlights since it's a very unique program. This is a program in collaboration between two top schools globally, the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, and National University of Singapore, NUS. This program is going into its 20th year of existence. So it's almost our 20th anniversary, which is so exciting. The graduates from this program leave with 2 MBA degrees, one from each school. The method of teaching our MBA students is through concept application, active and experiential approaches, and peer learning. And the end goal is to take senior professionals from management to leadership. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the UCLA-NUS Dual MBA is a unique program. Here's just a quick snapshot for more detail. The program duration is 15 months, and we visit Singapore and the US twice, and China and India once, each for 1 to 2 weeks at a time in this truly Asia-Pacific, US-focused experience. Each year, our class size ranges from anywhere from 30 to 40 students, and we prefer that our program size doesn't exceed more than about 50 students, so it remains intimate with a low student to faculty ratio. So whether our students are looking to enhance their career, explore a new one, dabble into entrepreneurship, our executive career coaches are ready to support them through one-on-one executive coaching and counseling. And last but not least, students graduate with 2 MBA degrees and join 2 incredible alumni networks, leading to truly limitless opportunities. So who are we? Who are our schools? Who is NUS and who's UCLA? First, I'll talk about NUS. Who is the National University of Singapore? So for 57 years, National University of Singapore Business School has offered a rigorous and rewarding business education to outstanding students globally. Founded in the same year that Singapore gained its independence, NUS Business School stands among the world's leading business schools today. It is distinctive for offering the best of global business knowledge with deep Asian Insights, preparing students to lead Asian businesses to international success and to help global businesses succeed in Asia. It is ranked #1 in Asia Pacific. And who is UCLA? UCLA Anderson is one of the leading business management schools in the world and is renowned for teaching excellence and research in advancing management thinking. It's located in the heart of Los Angeles, where you have the most vibrant, culturally diverse economic hub in Southern California at your fingertips, with focuses in entrepreneurship, finance, real estate, and so much more. UCLA is driven and consists of a community who embody the values of sharing success, thinking fearlessly, and driving change. This MBA program has really brought together two powerhouses. Next slide. Thank you. Our schools are proud of our faculty and our curriculum. The UCLA-NUS program has an equally balanced mix of UCLA Anderson faculty and NUS faculty, giving you a variety of perspectives and case studies from all over the world. Our faculty are practitioners, researchers, and have a good mix of PhD faculty, adjunct faculty, and even our PhD faculty have consulting experience with real companies. Our faculty are supporters, or they're collaborators, and they're truly there for the student success inside and outside of the classroom. Now, where is the classroom? That's one component that makes us, I think, the most unique out of all programs I've seen. So we're in different countries for many of the segments of the program. So we do require 6 residential segments across the world. We start the program each May in Singapore, then go at the NUS campus, and then are in Los Angeles at the UCLA campus in August, then in China in November, then in February in India, then again in Singapore in May. Then you finalize the program with graduation in August at UCLA's campus. So in looking at this, you might say, okay, how long am I really there in country? And there's a date range, 9 to 13 days and so forth. So I'll explain more of this in the next slide. We've recently made some curriculum developments, so this is news to our alumni on the call. In our recent program developments, we've added on several electives and an entrepreneurship path for our students' capstone project. Now, we've done all of this while reducing the time in country. So this program allows you to cherry pick electives from both schools based on your personal goals. The value is being able to customize your MBA across both campuses with flexible learning formats and taking these classes during the in-country segment or in between segments. If you decide to take a specific elective offered, this may extend your time in country, hence the range of dates in the last slide. All of these details we encourage our prospective candidates and incoming students to talk to their program manager and admission staff to really pick out what their curriculum could look like and how long their days in country, their time in country could actually look. So during the final months of the program, students come together in groups of 5 to complete their master's thesis. This is when the students put their MBA to use outside of work in a real-world immediate application and experiential learning. The 2 paths for the master's thesis are the management practicum, working with the company, and the business creation plan, launching their own business idea. In the management practicum, students act as a consultant for an existing company. They work on strategic problems and develop comprehensive business solutions for the company. In the business creation program, students learn how to start a new business from inception to launch. So these are two really exciting paths that our students get to take. So that business creation program is a new component of the UCLA-NUS program. Just a quick note about the management practicum. UCLA Anderson pioneered the first business school field study in 1968. So this is a tried and true method. So together with NUS, we facilitate these field study programs for international companies and companies here in the US to allow students to apply their theories to real life business challenges. So next slide. The learning extends beyond the classroom through industry guest speakers and company visits. The company visit is an integral part of the immersive learning experience that allows candidates to learn and understand strategies, challenges, and insights as a leader. Through different dialogue sessions at the company, you're learning from senior executives of the organization and just really getting an in-depth, comprehensive view of the organization and its impact, many times impact globally with the companies that we visit. Next slide. All right, I'll pass it on to Desiree.
Thank you so much, Christina. And hello again, everybody. I'm Desiree from NUS, and I hope you guys are doing good today. Now, over the next few slides, I'll be talking about the types of people you will meet in a typical class. Firstly, it's typically between 30 to 40 in a class, and it's kept small because we have found that for a class that size, it makes it easier for participants to bond with one another. And many have formed lasting friendships and networks because of that. Now, in a typical class, the average age is around 38. The average number of years in terms of work experience is about 16 years. The average number of years in regards to management experience, whether it's leading or supervising a team, a department, and so on, that's about 9 years. The female proportion in a typical class, 40%. Countries of residence, where they are based in. We have seen an average of 11 in the class. And over the course of a few years, we have seen 20 different nationalities from 5 different regions. Next, we'll be looking at their industries and functions. Are you from any of these industries and functions listed here? Well, as you can see from this slide, we have seen participants from financial services, tech, entertainment, healthcare, manufacturing, and so on. As for functions, there are those from consulting, business development, law, general management, and the list goes on. Now, for the next slide, what kind of positions did they hold when they took up the UCLA-NUS EMBA program? Well, we have seen a strong, diversified workforce. Those who were specialists, team leads, managers, head of departments, GMs, CEOs, and presidents. So to summarize the last few slides, we aim for high caliber candidates for every intake, and we aim for diversity in all aspects as well. And as Christina mentioned earlier, we believe in peer-to-peer learning and sharing. So it will be really beneficial for you as a student to have all of these people from various backgrounds, cultures, geographical locations, and so on together in a class. That's because, we find that it adds richness to the class. And just imagine the network you'll be able to build and what you can learn from each other. The wider the range, the better your experience. Now, this year's Financial Times EMBA rankings. The Financial Times EMBA rankings were announced on 17th October, and it's something that they do annually. The list and scores are based on research and feedback they have gathered from past participants and graduates of various EMBA programs across the globe. And here are the main takeaways. We are very proud to say that we have jumped 18 spots to number 11, something that we are very proud of. And based on their findings, our alumni achieved a 70% increase in their salaries 3 years after graduation, reaching an average of 323,000 USD for their salary today. Compared to other EMBA programs, our career progress rank jumped from number 83 to number 26. Female proportion in the class increased from 30% to 41%. We also scored well for international student diversity, exposing students to diverse perspectives and preparing them for a global business environment. We scored 82%. Lastly, the UCLA-NUS EMBA program ranked number 6 globally for international course experience. Next, let's talk about the overall investment required in terms of course fees. Now, in total, this program will cost 135,000 USD, which will be broken down into installments paid across the 15 months, as you can see from the table on the right. Upon acceptance, you'll be expected to make the first payment to NUS, and the remaining balance will be split between UCLA in USD and NUS in Singapore dollars. Now, what does this cover? Well, it covers study materials. Meals are inclusive and non-refundable. You know, things from your case studies, your readings, your books, your ebooks. It also includes networking dinners or your transport to and from companies that you'll be visiting during the residential segments. What it doesn't cover, however, are things like lodging, airfare, out-of-pocket expenses, and local taxes. One very common question I've been getting is this. They have asked me, Desiree, do we need to stay in a specific place or a specific hotel? Well, not at all. It's actually up to you. You can look for something else that suits your taste and your budget. Past graduates have rented service apartments or Airbnbs with their group mates. So yeah, that's something you can consider doing as well. Now, moving on to the next slide. Who are we looking for? Well, you'll need professional and leadership experience, a minimum of 8 years of full-time professional work experience, high-level managerial responsibilities of people resources or projects, or if you hold a pivotal role in achieving business goals. We are looking for those with that collaborative spirit, innovative thinking, and academic readiness. You'll need to have a bachelor's degree or equivalent with a good GPA to apply, and we'll go through the admissions process in just a little bit. Not before I hand things back to my UCLA colleague, Christina. Christina, over to you.
Thank you, Desiree. So I want to be sure to let you all know about our decision timeline, the admissions timeline, if you are interested in applying. So you may be wondering, what are your next steps and what is the timeline? This program starts in May. It feels, I can't believe it's, people are already decorating for the holidays over here. It's already going to be the new year. May is approaching. So we'll hopefully ease any concerns and let you know. First and foremost, we're here for you throughout this process. So we want to be in touch with you along the way. The first step would be to research the program. You're already taking a big step by meeting with us today and hearing about the program. If you haven't already done a one-on-one consultation or sent us your resume, then we encourage you to do so just to see if you're a good fit for the program. So that would be the first step. And then once you know that you want to apply, we encourage you to gather your required admission requirements and those materials. I'll go over that in more depth in the next slide. Once you submit the application, actually to submit the application, the first deadline, the first major deadline is December 1st. So it is approaching in a little less than a month. So if you are applying for that round 1 of December 1st, just keep in mind that we've waived the application fee if you apply by December 1st. Now, if you apply for the second round, it's a $200 application fee, but so try to make it to round 1 if you're ready. If you're not ready, don't worry, it's still the $200, but we want you to feel the most ready with your application and your profile, and that's when you should go ahead and hit the submit button there. Once you submit the application, we will begin the evaluation process on our end, on the UCLA end, and separately on the NUS end. So we each go through our own admissions committees and our own faculty committees, and we come together to come up with a decision for your candidacy. So since it is 2 separate MBA programs, 2 separate degrees, we each go through our own evaluations. But you will receive like a joint admission from us, hopefully. The evaluation also consists of an interview. So interviews are by invitation only. So we do invite you to join us for an interview, either conducted by UCLA or NUS. Really depends on your time zone. It also depends on maybe you didn't get to talk to UCLA or NUS during your evaluation stages. So you want to get to know the other school a little bit more, want to get to know the people a little bit more. That's a great time for you to choose to do your interview with the school that you're not so familiar with. Let's see, once your interview is completed, we try to give you a decision within about a few weeks to a month. So do let us know if your timing is looking short and you need us to give you any insight or to your decision a little sooner. We could try to get you that. Yeah, so that's a little bit more about the decision timeline. And the final deadline up there, as you saw, was February 28th. So that's the final deadline, and that is all to begin the program in May 2023. The application requirements, our goal is to make this process as seamless and transparent as possible. So we are in touch with you almost daily as you go through the application and get your application requirements in. And that's not a problem with us. So something to note here is you'll see up top, we do not require the GMAT, the GRE, or the EA. Instead, we evaluate each applicant on an individual basis to ensure they're ready for the quantitative rigor of the program, since it is a pretty quantitatively rigorous MBA program. So we just want to ensure that everyone is prepared for that quant rigor, and if not, there are prep courses, prep materials that we give to our incoming students to take, since we do understand many of our students haven't been in school for some time. Since this is an executive MBA program, the average years of work experience is, as Desiree said, is about 14, 15 years. So we want to ensure that you're feeling ready and confident for the start of the program. The application will ask you to provide your transcripts, degree certificates as well for some, 3 essays, just so we can get to know you better, your resume, 2 recommendation letters provided by ideally a supervisor or former supervisor, someone that knows you very well, someone that can really speak to your leadership, your management, someone that can really be that advocate for you and understands the reasons why you're thinking about this MBA. And last but not least, the TOEFL or the IELTS is an English preparation or English proficiency exam. So that may be required from some candidates depending on where you received your undergrad or graduate degrees. So we can connect with you if you're unsure if you would need to take that exam. So that would be for UCLA. So you can go ahead and email me or Vanessa, anyone on our team, to see if you would need to take that exam or not. So last slide here, and before we go on to our alumni panel, this is just our contact information. So our contact information and our rounds, our deadlines here, our website. So please, again, as it says here, at any stage, we are there. We want to help support you through this process. We want to help you be sure that this is a good program for you. If you have any of those questions, we want to support you and just kind of help you through this process as much as possible. So please don't hesitate to reach out there. But okay, so I am going to, okay, Mikhail, there's scholarships. At the moment, there are no scholarships available. But that's just at the moment. So things may change. Every year we reevaluate. So now we're going to move on to our incredible alumni panel. Before we ask each of them questions, I would like to ask each individually to tell us a little bit about themselves, if you don't mind. So I'll start with you, Apichaya. Hi, nice to see you. I'll start with you, if you don't mind giving us a 5-minute or so intro and on your background. And if you can start by saying your name and that you're UCLA-NUS alum and your class year, because we're recording this. So we're going to want that later.
All right. Thank you, Christina. It's great to be back and serving this community as well. So my name is Apichaya from the UCLA-NUS class of 2020. I'm currently working at Google as the regional head of Southeast Asia. So I focus on the commerce business. And a little bit about myself, right? I've always been in tech industry, right? Decades ago, I started Google Thailand business as a second hire. Then I took an opportunity to kind of scale up a little bit of the business development and strategic partnership function in the early days. Eventually become the country head for Thailand customer solution team 2-3 years ago, where I led a multiple $million business to achieve growth acceleration. And just recently, last 3 months, I made a shift from local country management to the Southeast Asia regional leadership. So that's about me.
Thank you, Apichaya. There we go, Dennis.
Hey, thanks, Christina. So, hi everyone, I'm Dennis Donnelly, class of 2019 from UCLA and 2020 NUS. As Christina said, this program actually gives you 2 MBAs. I'm Irish, have been living in Singapore for almost 12 years. My background is in the technology industry, progressively moving from technical roles, delivery support, through to pre-sales, the dark side of sales, as I joke, and then the even darker side of sales leadership. I joined VMware in February of this year, and I lead their security business across all of their Southeast Asia and Korea region. So 19 countries, so not much of a challenge at all, but certainly makes for lots of interesting days. Christina, did you want me to kind of share on my experience with the program? And okay, I'll carry on then. So in terms of my experience, what was it like balancing the EMBA with a full-time job? In one word, challenging. Myself and my wife, we had our second child 5 weeks after I started the program. So while completing the program, was a huge challenge for me, it was also particularly challenging for my wife, particularly when I was on some of the overseas segments. So it's very important to communicate with your family and friends up front what life would be like as you pursue an MBA. Personally, we documented what my average kind of week would look like. So then we kind of worked around that. And on the flip side, it actually gave my wife motivation to go back and pursue a master's degree herself. So she just submitted her thesis last week. So don't underestimate, the inspiration that you might be able to provide to some of your other families and friends. But what was, I suppose, my personal motivation for an EMBA and why UCLA-NUS? It was it's kind of a multi-part answer. So I was at a point in my career where I was a very successful individual contributor, but I knew that if I wanted to make more of an impact, it would be probably via a leadership role. And I knew I had some gaps there, particularly around things like just, finance, strategy, leadership, not all of which can be addressed through an MBA. But I was quite fortunate to be promoted into a leadership role about 3 months after I started the program. So kind of between the MBA and the new leadership role, I reckon it accelerated my career by probably 5 to 6 years at least over the course of just a 15-month program. In terms of the MBA, so depending on where you're kind of at in your life, you could choose, I narrowed it down to part-time, full-time, or executive MBA. For me, full-time was out of the question because I wasn't prepared to give up work for 2 years or so. Part-time, I also didn't want to give up my weekends for 2 to 3 years, and I was worried about, remaining committed to a program for so long. So that really left me with an EMBA program. So why NUS UCLA? So it's a relatively short list of kind of strong global EMBA programs. Most of the programs involve significant travel. For some of them, it's all outside of Singapore, but I appreciated the component being based in Singapore. And again, as Christina said, you get not just one, but 2 MBAs. I felt I had a lot of European experience, obviously growing up in Ireland and having my kind of initial education there. So I felt this program really provided a strong kind of insight into Asia and into the US. So if you're working for an American company in Asia or working in the US, looking for more exposure into Asia, I think this is the perfect kind of bridging program for that. And then just lastly, what have I learned from the program? It's such a huge question, but fundamentally, this program has just completely changed how I think. So I'm now very comfortable putting myself into the shoes of a CEO, CFO, COO. So one of the particular capabilities I believe I've developed as a result is really the ability to formulate very strong go-to-market strategies. So moving between strategic, operational, and tactical discussions, depending on the internal or external stakeholders that I'm speaking with. And then just very lastly, I'd be remiss not to mention the positive aspects that the program has delivered in my personal life. Classes like macroeconomics, financial accounting, but particularly corporate finance with Prof. Amir Hernjit, who was shared on one of the earlier slides. I had very, very limited insight into these kind of topics before the program, but it really opened my eyes. And as a result, I believe I've become far more comfortable with finance and a much better investor of my personal and family finances. So that's it for me. If anyone who's considering the program wants to reach out, feel free to do so on LinkedIn. Happy to share more on my experience with the program, but I couldn't recommend it enough. Back to you, Christina.
Thank you. Next up, hi, Michael.
Hello. All right, so I guess my face on the screen, that means it's my turn. Hi, everybody. So my name is Michael No. I'm originally from the US. I'm from California. I've moved to Southeast Asia since 2007. So I've been splitting my time between Vietnam and Singapore. So I've done about 10 years in Vietnam and about 6 years in Singapore. So where I work, so this wasn't on purpose. I put this background because I was going to blur out my background, but my house is quite messy. So this screen serves a much better purpose. As you can see, so I'm the country manager of Elsa Speak Vietnam. And so what Elsa Speak is, it's an AI technology that helps English learners with their pronunciation. So what the technology is able to do is to detect down to the phenome level pronunciation errors and provide ways to correct it. And probably starting next year as well, I'll be taking a more of a general manager role, taking on more countries, namely Thailand, Cambodia, and a few others. So that's my background. Now let's see. Let's go back to the questions. So I guess before we start the questions is why I decided to do an MBA and why specifically UCLA and NUS. Prior to my work at ELSA, I was handling marketing for a US-based company for Southeast Asia. And prior to that, I co-founded a startup in Vietnam that was in the e-commerce and logistics space. Especially during the time that I was I co-founded a startup, I felt that, it's one of these times where you're learning as you go. So you're learning how to write a pitch deck, how to pitch to investors, how to write a business plan. And as we were going through it, I kind of had this sense of like kind of imposter syndrome. Like, is this the first time you're doing it? I'm sitting there with Google. I don't know if it's right or wrong. So I always felt like I lacked that kind of foundational foundation to build off of. And so because of that, when I had the chance and opportunity to take up an MBA, I really wanted to do that. Just so obviously I wanted to learn, but another part of it too is I wanted to be more self-assured that what I'm doing is correct, and to give myself that confidence to go through as well. Now, why specifically UCLA and US is obviously based on my background from California. So UCLA was a really popular school for us in undergrad. I ended up going to UC San Diego, so I had a foot obviously in California, in the US. I spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia, specifically Singapore. And then this was the best way I felt that could bridge both parts of my life together. And so that's why I chose UCLA and US. Now, describe the overall experience. So it's similar to what Dennis said. The overall experience was great. I came into it thinking, I might have slacked off more than I should have in undergrad. And now that I'm older and more mature, I can, appreciate the education. And as you go through these classes, that's very much the case. But then it's also very much the case that you spend a lot more time learning from everybody around you than actually in class itself. I mean, no disrespect to the professors and whatnot, but working side by side and in groups and with everyone around you, especially when you work in industry. So my previous industry before technology was advertising. So these are the two industries I have most experience with and colleagues in. But when you're working with us alongside people in finance or management consultants, the way they look at problems and the way they look at assignments is completely different. And that's an experience I wouldn't be able to do outside of an MBA program. And what it's like balancing. So similar to Dennis as well, my first child, when I first started, was about 2 years old. And after I graduated, my wife gave birth to our second child. So it was also very trying and challenging to go through this as well. But as Dennis also said, it's very important to get the buy-in and support from family and friends who definitely need to be there to help while you're gone and for those 2 weeks in class and dedicated to what you're doing. So let's see, so it's like, and also full-time job, yeah. So besides friends and family, obviously your bosses have to be very supportive of this as well. So it's very important to get their buy-in because those 2 weeks, in the first few segments, you really think that you can handle doing work, answering emails while you're listening, while you're doing coursework. And the reality is it's just not possible. So it's best to make sure you sync and get the buy-in from your superiors, so that you can get that time off and focus purely on the course. And how I've been able to apply what I learned from the program. So A lot of this has to do with finance. I feel like I'm copying a lot of what Dennis said, but you know, a lot of the finance courses, accounting, corporate finance. This is a lot of stuff that I didn't have exposure to in my career. So now that through this program, what I'm able to do now is sit very confidently with our CFO and go over our forecasts, our P&L for the next years, and everything like that. So all in all, it was a great experience. Would I do it again in a heartbeat? Especially offline, because I think that's when you get the most value out of the program and out of your classmates.
Thank you, Michael. That was great. All right, Ryan.
Hey guys, hi. Thank you, Christina. So my name is Ryan. Just a quick introduction on myself before I talk about the program itself. So I'm Singaporean, born and bred in Singapore. I studied overseas, worked in various countries, more recently in Singapore. I started out in the military, and then I moved into big corporate. So I ran M&A strategy for some of the listed companies in Singapore, and then more recently I moved into operations and recently started going a bit more early stage. So now I'm the Chief Operating Officer of a content tech startup, seed round. It's called 1 Billion Stories. I would say that, you know, if I put myself in your shoes, you know, you're probably choosing between different programs. And there were, I think, 3 key reasons why I chose the UCLA and US program, besides the fact that you do get 2 great degrees from 2 great schools, separate degrees, as I think Dennis pointed out. I think the first is that it was modular in a way that was acceptable to me. What I mean by this is that the modules actually are 2 weeks long and they span over like, I think, 15 months. Other programs that I looked at had 1 week every month or like 1 week every 2 months. And to me, that was more disruptive from a personal as well as a work perspective. The second reason was that I felt it gave me a very good cross-cultural and cross-geographical overview of technology in both America, which is, I guess, you know, they call it the Silicon Beach, which is UCLA, Santa Monica region, as well as Singapore. I think in particular, UCLA actually offers a global immersion program as part of the course electives that you can take. And in that global immersion program, I got to mix with people from the mainstream UCLA MBA, full-time MBA classes, and I found that additional exposure and networking to be very beneficial. And I think the third is that I got very different perspectives from a very international group of people. And I felt that it wasn't just Americans and people in the region. In my class, Intake 15, there were people from Japan, India, I think 1 person from South America as well. So it was a good, really good mix of networking. And when I looked at the class profile of different programs, I felt that the UCLA and US class profile was most aligned to my own personal goals. I would say application to work, there's so many, you know, this is some of what Michael and Dan said. If you think that you need a broader academic sort of perspective on a wide range of management topics, this program obviously gives you that. For me, it was more of like, you know, the different cultural perspectives and to see how different people from different verticals and different geographical backgrounds react to different scenarios, be it in the classroom, be it in a real life management practicum consulting project that you do, which is the capstone project. I felt that was very beneficial, and it allowed me to think about how I would also tailor my own behavior in a very international business environment. For example, my startup now has people from all over the world, including Egypt, and some of these perspectives were indeed very helpful. It is useful to challenge the perspectives, especially if you have come from a particular industry or a particular geography. Being exposed to that in a safe classroom-like environment, I think is maybe quite beneficial to your own development as well. Maybe I'll just talk about a last thing, which is balancing the EMBA and you know, your general work and family. I think it's hard. I would say that one of the hardest things is not actually the work itself, but just coordinating times. Imagine coordinating times like across 3 time zones. You need to do a group assignment or a project. Having said that, I think it does, the cross-cultural perspectives do make the experience very valuable. For example, for my own capstone project, we did a project for a listed company in Thailand that does food supply. So we actually traveled to the provinces of Thailand and not just Bangkok City itself, and coordinating that across different time zones and people from all, they have all different schedules is really hard. But when it did come to fruition, it was very meaningful. So it's going to be hard to balance in general, and especially you might be having some late night calls because of the time zone differences. But I do believe that it makes the experience all the more memorable and worth it. So I'd be happy to take any questions from anybody, either on this panel, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Thank you, everyone here. We're going to bring back the alumni and bring Desiree on and myself on, ask some questions, and then we'll open it up to Q&A after that.
Yeah, and also, Christina, if you allow me, I think I miss sharing a little bit of an experience, so I can share briefly before we get into the list of the question. I think majority of alums here sum it up quite well. And I just want to add a couple of points, right? So, I can tell all the groups right here that still in a decision process that the EMBA has been super transformative for me, right? Like I gained a lot of experience, lots of benefit, especially on connecting the dot and eventually help me become a better general manager and better leader as well. During that period of time, I had like 2 big career transitions to be a country head and now a regional head. And I think without an MBA, it won't get me where I am today. Now, in terms of the motivation that I have, definitely, I think majority of us that consider MBA, you love to learn, right? And you had a little bit of the things that is back of your mind that you think you need an MBA, right? And I was one of the people in that group, right? And beyond that, like Michael was sharing, in tech company and tech industry, UCLA is really well respected place to learn more about how to be a good general manager. And particularly if you're in Asia, if you're based in Singapore, or if you want to work in Singapore or the regional hub in APAC, right? NUS is one of the top university. And what comes with a great university, you get great professor, you get great learning material that are super practical. Discussion in the room was amazing, and I would assume that majority of you are busy executive, and the program is so succinct. It took less than 2 years to complete, so that was super helpful when I have to make that decision between several programs that are available. Now, in terms of a very specific example of what the program had provided for me, I would say, to sum it up, is connecting the dot, right? I know that I've always been in tech, probably, marketing, sales, business development in my entire career. I'm not familiar with division like finance, right? Or legal or, other divisions or function. And then, this program kind of gave me that different perspective and point of view to understand things more broadly. And when you are in the exec seat, right, people actually paid for your point of view. Like that is how I got to know later on in my career. So even though you kind of face with the same problems and challenge, your ability to kind of think holistically from different point of view make your judgment a lot sharper. And to be very specific, like this macro situation, we know it's tough, right? And without the MBA giving me a lot of perspective on how you think from macro, micro, finance, operation, legal, I wouldn't be able to kind of have a confidence and be able to direct my business with a sharp strategy and how I allocate my resource and how I manage the people, cross culture and things like that, right? So you are able to do it with confidence. So that's a little bit more that I want to add.
Thank you, Apichaya. I'm glad you did. That's very, very helpful to hear your perspective, especially being in tech. That's super helpful to hear. Let's see here, Desiree, did you want to start off with any questions?
Yeah, so let's ask our wonderful alumni panel some questions. Like, firstly, how did you guys typically prepare before each segment? You know, before flying over to China or India, for example, what do you guys do to prepare for each segment? Feel free to, you know, share some stories with us. Perhaps you can start with Michael.
Well, so the way the courses are lined out, so in between segments, you'll be assigned a lot of assignments. And then the end of the segment before, you'll be given a bunch of books. So a lot of preparation there is making sure all the assignments are ready. And then if you're not able to finish everything in time, at least have a list of all the things you're supposed to do on the plane while on the way to the segment. But in addition to that, a lot of it goes back to scheduling as well. So making sure all your work is handed over to other team members, making sure your house is in order for those 2 weeks, so that you can really focus on.
And Dennis, do you have anything to add on to that?
I just echo what Michael said. For our particular intake, our first class was microeconomics, and it was brutal. Particularly, you know, for some folks who maybe hadn't been in any sort of formal academic environment for 10 years or so. But it was a wake-up call. And because I was kind of a pretty late sign-on to the program, I thought I had prepared well. I had not. So it really just led me to be very disciplined then. You know, like Michael said, we got a lot of book materials at the very end of one segment for the next segment. So then I was just as diligent as I could be to get through as much of the book, as well, obviously, as the coursework and stuff like that. So it meant that then once, you know, we got to segment 2 in Los Angeles, it really allowed, you know, I had a strong foundation, and it allowed me to be much more engaged in the class. But one thing Michael said as well, I can't kind of like reinforce enough, is handover. You know, unfortunately, there were certainly some of our classmates that you could see were working on work-related stuff during class, but thankfully I was able to hand over all of that and just be 100% present, because it's in those classroom engagements that you get some of the best learning.
So that's pre-segment. Now, Ryan and Apichaya, what happens during the segment? Because another common question I've been getting from prospects, they have asked if it's, you know, okay for them to still juggle their day-to-day work while doing the segment. So maybe you can share your personal experiences. Ryan?
Yeah, so I think it's quite common to actually do work during the segments. During the tea breaks and lunch, you'll actually see a group probably taking calls, answering emails, and I think it's, you know, it's acceptable to just step out of class to do that. So don't think you should be worried about that. I would say that during the segment itself, when there are classes ongoing, there are sometimes group work and group assignments that require you to stay late. But it's never too overwhelming, I think. A lot of the groups, I would say in my intake, and Mike and Dennis remember this, there are groups that stay till 11 o'clock, midnight. There are groups that stay till 9 p.m. It really kind of depends on you and what you want to get out of it. So that was my experience.
Apichaya?
Yeah, I can add that it's not easy. I'll tell all of you, and you have to be super intentional on how you manage your time during you know, pre-class and during the class as well. And I echo off the discussion right here. Right, you have to be super disciplined and you know, on, you know, managing the readings, the homework, project deliverables, and things like that. And especially from me, I know that my work require a lot of, my attention, right? And it's highly intensive for the program. Like, it's super rigorous. If you are expected it to be like it's not, right? So I try my best to be fully present in class so that I don't have to go back and read all the material again by myself, right? And then during the discussion and project time, I'm just trying to get it done right there. During night, I admit I have spent a decent amount of time catching up on my work just to make sure that things are on track, but not too much. And if I can, do all this all over again, I probably want to tell myself to enjoy the class and experience a little bit more, and try to manage my time and make sure that people are taking care of the work. And then I think that would be the best that you got out of the class. And again, nothing in the world would be perfect. I'm not the best student in class, I'll tell you. Ryan probably is, but not me, right? But then I get a decent understanding about, the core principle. It's applicable already, and I think that's what I'm expecting out of it, and I got what I want. Yeah, so.
Thank you, Apichaya.
Just
Oh,
want to add
sorry,
one
go
more
ahead.
thing.
Please do.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think what Ryan said makes sense too. It's like, it's what you expect to get out of it. And I think if you come in with a mind, I mean, for me, it's a perspective of, even at work, it's those water cooler moments when you're talking to your colleagues, or, kind of a brainstorm that really make work much more enjoyable, because work is work, but when you're actually getting to know the people you're working with and solving problems, and that's what's really valuable when there's those tea breaks, when there's when class is finished and you go out for drinks with your classmates. So those things are very, very important to the experience, and I would advise anybody who considers taking this up to like what Apichaya said, be very intentional about the time you make, and be intentional about being present with your classmates when you're there.
These are all really good tips, and I heard even some really good study tips in there, and ways to think about delegating your responsibilities and being fully there, being fully present. It's short. 15 months is not a long time. It's a short program, and you're meeting these incredible individuals who become your family. So embracing those moments all together, because it's not going to be often that you'll see them in the same room again. So I do want to talk a little bit about who your classmates were with you. Tell me about your classmates and those relationships you fostered. Would love to hear all about that. Maybe if you can tell us some fun stories, or just some takeaways from the people that you've met through the program. And we could start anyone, whoever wants to unmute first.
Maybe we can start with Dennis.
Or we're unmuting you for you.
I mean, this at times the kind of the root of this question for some folks is, diversity of the class, and if they're looking to maybe expand their professional network or something like that. But kind of, as I said earlier, my background in the technology industry, there were a few folks with a similar background in the class. But what I just liked about the class was the diversity and the size. So it really did allow you to build very strong relationships with folks within a segment or two, in a lot of cases. Because, when you've got assignments due, you can kind of feel like you're in a little bit of a sort of pressure cooker environment. But also when you're in a new city, or a relatively new city like Los Angeles, with some locals, and they're showing you why they're so proud of their hometown, it's really, really impactful. So I think like we're, 3 years, over 3 years since our last class, but I'm still incredibly tight with, at least a third of the class. I would talk with them quite regularly, even though, on paper we don't have a lot in common, but was really able to forge some very, very strong and enduring friendships. So very valuable in that regard. So no stories, Christina.
No, no, that's okay.
Do you like the way I kind of glossed over that? You know, what stays on, what happens on tour stays on tour.
Absolutely. No, well said. Very PG. I loved it. Anyone else want to talk about their experiences here with the group?
I can share a little bit more. I think this is actually the highlight, right? The fact that you got such a diverse group of people into one room, right? I think this is, you know, at least my highlight, given that I've always been only in tech, right? And in my cohort, I think we have like CEO, we have investor, we have governor, we have doctor, we have researcher, we have a couple PhD, you know, folks from country like Kazakhstan, which, you know, I would never got a chance to engage with, you know, these kind of diverse perspective and experience, right? And I think it's just like super eye-opening when, you know, people look at the same problem, but then they share a different perspective. I think that was like my wow moment and super valuable. You know, my cohort was a little bit odd that we had a mix of, you know, beginning of COVID, we had that, not beginning, like right in the middle of COVID, we had this kind of an MBA. So we had a mix of both, you know, offline and online. But again, you know, despite being offline, online together, I still see a lot of people kind of flex different muscle. So again, another, you know, side of learning that I got from the group as well. So yeah, I would say this is the highlight. Yeah. Not a lot of story, but I think overall it's a great experience.
You guys have like WhatsApp chat groups and you guys are like sending each other memes and stuff after graduating?
I still send everybody memes. Sometimes they may get annoyed, but I do it anyways. No, I was just gonna say, and adding on to everyone said, it's not just getting everybody of, you know, yeah, we had CEOs, Ryan's a COO, we had CFOs, you had a lot of really senior people in the room. And it's not the same as like, say you meet them at a conference and you're talking about work and everyone's very formal, but then you're stuck with each other for 15 months, you know, you go out, maybe one drink too many. I won't go into too many stories, but one drink too many, all of a sudden everyone's on equal playing field. Everyone's kind of the same. Everyone's let their hair down, and then that's when you start to get dig a little deeper and get to know a lot of people. So, a lot of the best stories are the ones you don't remember, and you crawl back into class the next day somehow, somewhere, where you don't forget where you are sometimes.
Love that.
Quit closing my ears. We didn't hear that.
Ryan, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would just say that also a lot of the bonding comes from I think mutual sharing of perspectives even outside the classroom. So for example, some of my classmates, you know, we're going through a transition in life, transition at work, and I'm sure a lot of us, you know, collectively have always thought about, you know, a different path in life, a different path in career, a different personal path. And my personal perspectives was shaped by a lot of the people that shared their own path, right? You know, people leaving safe corporate jobs, people that, you know, wanted a career transition, but, you know, they couldn't take the risk of moving to a different geography like Michael, or they couldn't take the risk of moving to a different industry, the fear of failure. So I think you also realize that everybody, even though they're senior, they're people. And I also learned a lot from these conversations, really. And like Michael said, until you're put in a place where you have to mix with people and you actually know them in an environment outside of work, so it's not so threatening, you really do get a lot of these anecdotal wisdom. And I think I learned a lot, if not equally as much, from these perspectives as much as like the classroom.
Fantastic. Now, just one more question from us before we open it up to the floor. Any useful tips or advice for future applicants? Because you guys were there, you guys were in this position before as well. So if you could, maybe one tip or advice from each of you. Michael?
One tip or advice. I would say The applications is coming up in December. It's free, so you might as well do it. And if you're not ready, after you get your acceptance, hopefully you can decide later whether you want to do it or not. But I think it's one of these things where don't overanalyze analysis paralysis. You know, you're already in this call, you're already thinking of doing it. Just do it, just apply it, and then you can make your final decision later.
I love that you threw out the December 1st deadline. Just heads up. Thanks, Michael.
Dennis?
I would say just do it. I was having some discussions with my manager around funding and whatnot. In the end, I fully funded myself. And just anecdotally, the large majority of our class were self-funded. And like that, you know, all in, that was close to like, what, 150, 160,000 US dollars, which kind of scares me now that I mention it, just like that. But you don't know what you don't know. Like my motivation, my rationale going in was completely changed within, you know, the first 2 weeks of the first segment. There were so many kind of mental walls that were brutally smashed by like Bob Yochen, amongst others. But like I said, it completely changed how I think. You don't know what you don't know, and it'll just open up so many other paths of discovery and progression for you. So do it before December 1st.
That's awesome. And I think just adding on to what Dennis and Michael said, I think it's normal for a lot of people, not too sure whether, you know, you guys experienced this when you were applying for the program, but it's that fear perhaps because it's been ages, maybe over a decade since you were in school. So you were a little bit apprehensive. Maybe you were overanalyzing your essay answers. I do have a lot of people asking me about that, about, you know, the 3 essay questions. So maybe Ryan and Apichaya can probably add on to that, you know, your experience during the whole application process, and yeah, any tips or advice you may have for everyone here today. Ryan?
Yeah, I guess I can go first. I would say just tell your own story in the essays. I think what people, what I guess what the community is looking for, if I was a community member, is a sense of who you are. Everybody comes from different backgrounds, so I don't think like academic or a standing in your, like, let's say your career really matters as much as the perspective you're going to bring to a class. So I would say, as Michael and Dennis say, apply. And, you know, once you're in, which I think, you know, given the quality of the people in my class and hearing how they are, I think, you know, most of you hopefully will get the chance, and then evaluate it against your options, not doing it, or doing another alternative program based on your feel of the people, alumni like us, and what we say about the program.
Yeah, and you know what, I can add that I know it's sometimes a tough decision, right? It's not a perfect timing, you know, you had a new job, you had things that pop up, and one thing I internalized was that if you want to do it, and if you decided to join this session, like, just do it, go for it. Like Dennis mentioned, don't delay, because in the end, you'll be able to manage it through, even though it seems impossible today, you will be able to manage it through, like all of us right here. And in terms of the application process, I just think application process help you reflect your goal and purpose, right? And actually help you answer the why more than other things that, you know, they probably need you to have a great essay, but it actually help you more because you will be able to know that. And I recall my own, right? I remember I wrote it out that I really want to broaden my perspective as a general manager. I want to eventually become a regional or global leader, right, one day. And I can tell you that, you know, when I think back, I think I kind of achieved the objective of what I actually want from the MBA, right? So if you got a chance to reflect through your application process, and then you feel like, yeah, you know what, this is a good option, go for it.